Well, can we please welcome to Cast of the Wills?
Did you?
Hello and welcome back to Cast of the Wills. I'm your host Will, and with me is my amazing co-host Amelia.
Hi.
We have just come back from Japan. It's been a little bit of a Star Wars trip. You'll see some other videos on my channel all about Star Wars, but that's not what we're doing today. Today is our first episode of Jump to Hyperspace.
Whoa.
So, Amelia, I'm sure you have a question you want to ask me.
What's Jump to Hyperspace?
Great question. Jump to Hyperspace is when we go outside of the Star Wars universe and we talk about other IPs or talk about themes generally. So today's topic, as you can see from the thumbnail, title, and from the desk, is going to be all about God of War and God of War Ragnarok. But Hyperspace generally is when we want to talk about something outside of Star Wars. Not that I always want to talk about Star Wars, but there might just be something else outside of Star Wars that we want to talk about, or even just like a theme generally. And in future, I'd like to do a video that's all about redemption in any media I've ever seen. Obviously, Star Wars would be the bedrock of that conversation, and I'm sure when we talk about God of War here, there'll be some parallels to Star Wars throughout, but so I can talk about some other IPs I'm passionate about, but obviously Star Wars is my day one, so I won't forget it. So, today is God of War. This is a series. It means a lot to me personally and emotionally, and it's, helped me a lot in my life, and especially these two games, it's meant a lot. The story in it, if you know about it, is very meaningful. So, and Amelia, you only finished it recently. You finished Valhalla. And this was your first proper video game you ever played,
I think you could say that,
end to end.
Yeah.
You really got engaged with the gameplay, the story, the characters,
story-based
I
game
feel.
as well in particular.
Yeah, and I definitely saw you improve. So, if we're going to do a video about God of War, I don't think these shirts are appropriate. So, let's try something else. So these are God of War Ragnarok official t-shirts. When God of War recently had its 20th anniversary, they had a whole bunch of merch. There's a poster I have up there. You can't quite see it in frame. I'll put an image up of it now that I absolutely love. So I got that, and I got these shirts as well. So this is appropriate for our first Jump to Hyperspace. Not every episode is going to have custom merch bought for the episode, but I thought for this one was fitting because I really like these series, and now it's a nice shirt we have. And we've got PlayStation on one side and Santa Monica, the studio that developed it, on the other. So I think so. The point of this episode is we're going to do a deep dive into characters and themes. So this could be a 4-hour episode. Who knows? But firstly, I want to focus on your experience of, from what I can tell, this is, like I said earlier, your first game you really got into. I definitely saw you improve. It's kind of like Kratos from the beginning of the first game to how you were at the end of Ragnarok. There's definitely growth and you learning a new skill. And if I can speak about myself for a second, I learned a lot about how to teach someone something. And, we're at university, so you're used to teaching a lot of idea-based things, but a practical skill, I've never had to teach someone before how to do something that isn't just using your mind. It's actually like a dexterity thing. So using a controller and using the camera was one of our first challenges. And even for myself, how do you teach someone? Yeah. Because for me, it was never even a thought. Using a camera is a second nature, but for you, that was a real challenge. So that's like an example of kind of your journey. But how have you found you've kind of maybe learned stuff about yourself or grown just by playing a game and learning a new skill? And maybe have you appreciated a new medium of storytelling?
I definitely can appreciate a new medium. Mm-hmm. I think I've learned that I can obviously still learn new skills. Like, not that I would call myself an old dog now, but you can teach an old dog new tricks. It did take a long time. I had a history in like piano and musical instruments, so that probably helped in some sort of the hand-eye coordination area, but I still wouldn't say that's my area of expertise in terms of playing video games. I don't think this is limited to God of War, but I don't love the combat in games. I know that that's part of the interactive element that distinguishes it from a movie or another form of media, but it'd be nice if there could be a player interaction that's less violent. Yeah. Not to make a huge value judgment on violence in games, but...
Or even just like the speed of a game. Because a game recently was Clair Obscure, and that was a turn-based game. So you took your turns and actions, and then the enemy did. So, I mean, you had like time to react, and you weren't like on the mark. Because I found that was a struggle, was you had was when you had enemies on the ground, enemies away from you, enemies flying. And it's how do you prioritize? How do you even figure out which order to do them in? How do you dodge 3 different kinds of attacks? So, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess that was most of the like camera-based skills and learning how to use my extra bits and pieces like my R1 or my triangle.
Yeah.
I would often forget about those.
Well, when I play games, I just do the old reliable. Like there's one action I always do over and over again. So yeah, I understand.
I think I got into that habit as well eventually. But
yeah,
I don't know. Diverting from the topic already. I think it would be interesting if there was a mainstream game where the player element is not to do with like enemies or combat. So I was thinking back to
like a slice of life game.
It Takes Two, which we've also played. But I do recall there were still enemy-based combat elements.
Interesting.
So where you could still use like the attack
elements
and the camera without it being against like a zombie type thing. Not that that's a draw, guys.
That's a good example. Yeah. So to bring it back on topic to God of War, I'll do a rapid fire for you.
Okay.
So, favorite character?
That's kind of hard.
Just like what's your gut reaction? Who's like, this is...
I think it's between Atreus and Mimir.
Interesting.
That was my gut reaction.
Favorite weapon?
Axe.
Okay, and favorite creature?
As in any of the creatures?
Any of the creatures we see. So whether it's like Jormungandr or one of the trolls
okay. You reminded me of Jormungandr. I was going to say the jellyfish. Yeah. They were kind of cute when we
So who's your favourite creature?
Them free. Probably Jormungandr.
Well, can we please welcome Jormungandr to Cast of the Wills?
Did you buy that when you got it as well?
Can everyone please welcome Jormungandr to Cast of the Wills? I've been holding on to this guy for half a year now, waiting to this episode. And now it is a gift to you. This is your gift for seeing through a whole game. And you did very well. So I thought when they release this plushie, limited plushie, mind you, I thought I have to get this for you. So this is your congratulations for finishing your first story game. He's got the axe in his mouth as well. So
thank you.
You can maybe wear him for a bit.
All right. How could I forget about him?
So if he gets too much, we can put him on the... And we got the hammer. They got Thor's hammer there. So that's why I set up that little rapid fire question. So we can have Jormungandr appear quickly. All right. Well, let's get into the deep side of it. I know we just brought Jormungandr. So maybe I can quickly go through the set then. So we've got the collector's edition for Ragnarok had these dice with it in the steelbook and Thor's hammer. And recently Magic the Gathering released a secret layer for the God of War Norse set. So of course I bought that. So if we're ready to get into the nuts and bolts of... It's going to be harder when you've got Jormungandr right there.
Should we add him to the collection?
Maybe that's a bit more appropriate. Okay, now that we've settled down a bit.
Seriously.
So I really want to get into it because this is a conversation we've been looking forward to for a long time. And I found especially as we were playing it... our first topic of conversation, I think is just Kratos generally. And there's a lot to unpack there. And I think the benefit I had of playing the games first and watching you is the Kratos from the end of Ragnarok is a different character from the beginning of 2018. Completely different. Like the Kratos we meet who's cutting down the tree and taking Faye to be burnt. That's a different Kratos that we see who sees the mural of himself being worshipped. And this is something we've hotly debated off camera a lot is does Kratos change or not? Is he the god killer still? Is he a god killer with a justifiable reason? Who determines what a justifiable reason is? Or has he become a better person? Has he become a better person because he has a kid? Is he a better parent? How does he learn all these things? So where do you want to start when we talk about this character of Kratos? And so one thing I'll mention, and I liked our approach to it, was we'd never played the original game, so the Greek trilogy. And it meant that we experienced Kratos as the rest of the world did in the Norse world was we knew the stories of him. Yeah. Like all I knew about Kratos before I played it long ago was he killed all the Greek gods in the Greek pantheon. And that was and he was like a very violent, vengeful person. And that's all I knew. And I kind of liked it because it meant when I played the game, I felt like I was on the outside of the character. And like when Mimir meets him and he kind of knows who he is, and same with Freya, and when we meet other characters in the series, they know his reputation and his story, but they don't know the character. I quite liked that view. I never felt like I was lacking not knowing the story. I feel like it actually enhanced it that I only know him by name and reputation. I actually don't know the character. I don't know why he killed I don't even know why he killed the gods. I found out after I played the first game, I did a bit of research, why he went on his whole bloodlust rampage. And I found it very interesting having that perspective. And did you like not knowing the world going into it, or do you wish you knew that backstory before you get into the character too much?
I think I did like seeing this new approach on the character. You'd given me the summary of kind of the main points going into it, but I don't know. I felt it was nice to see like a mature main character. Mature as in like the way he's depicted in years. I'm not going to go into how that works if you're a god, but like he looks like he's
old, he's definitely older in the game, compared to
whereas
the Greek.
I feel like in
the Greek ones, he's like 20s.
Seen,
I agree.
So could almost call that representation, I guess. I feel like most games would champion a younger lead to appeal to typically a younger audience. So I also think that was probably valuable for an assumedly younger audience to see maybe someone who evokes more of our parents rather than ourselves.
And that's when you hear people talking about this game, it's all about the father-son dynamic, or just the parent dynamic. And you see a lot, the game is rich in parent dynamics. That's kind of the bedrock of the entire story. In the first game, you've got Kratos and Atreus, but then you've got Freya and Balder, and even Odin and Balder. And so you have a lot of these dynamics, and even Mimir becomes like a father figure to Atreus as the story progresses. So I wonder if I think there's 3 themes. I wonder what the main one is, whether it's parentage, change, or grief. I think Ragnarok is about grief, but in the first game, it's all about delivering phase out. Like that first story is all about grief, and I don't know which one's the main one. There doesn't have to be a main one, but I feel like those are the 3 ones I feel like are change is the most obvious one. A lot of characters change a lot. Like when you finish Ragnarok, you forget that Brock and Sindri didn't talk to each other in the beginning of the first game, and when you started Ragnarok, I forgot that Freya was out to kill you, because when you get to a certain point in the story in the game, you're strong, bonded allies, and there's like a great platonic friendship and respect there. We're already getting distracted. So let's get a yes or no. The Kratos we meet at the beginning of 2018, is he a different person to the end of Valhalla? And why?
Yes, but from what I can tell, not to the extent that he's already different between Greece and Norway.
Yeah, Norse, Okay.
Like, I feel like he changes more looking retrospectively at the previous Greek games to becoming Atreus' father
But I feel like it's a superficial change of, instead of being this angry outward taking out his vengeance, he's just quiet and angry all the time.
Maybe.
Like he has the facade of stoicism, but he's like bubbling away inside. He never lets Atreus touch Faye's ashes in the first game until they get to the peak of the mountain. So it's like, it looks like he's changed, but you don't know, is he just bottling up the God of War? And then he releases the God of War in Ragnarok at times. And yes, he's changed, but is it a superficial change he's putting on for other people? But he might be putting it on for himself to think he's changed. And then when moments come that show his true colors, he chooses to revert to his old behaviors. I think by the end of Valhalla, we've definitely got a Kratos that recognizes his rage and anger and chooses to use it for good. But I still think he's that angry person.
I was going to say, I think it's that we also maybe don't get to see that transition. Like,
because it's about 1,000 years, I think, between the Greek and the Norse. It's a lot. I know there's a lot of character development in 1,000 years. Yeah.
The original, 2018 God of War and then Ragnarok, you see it happen. So like you said, it's obvious that at the end of Ragnarok, he's not the same as at the start of God of War, which I definitely agree with, but it's not quite as evident to me having kind of just played them in succession, because you watch it happen over the course of like 2 entire games.
Yes.
It's not like if I played the first scene of God of War and then the last scene of Valhalla, then it would be
a very stark comparison.
Difference. But watching it happen, I mean, took us a long time to get through these games.
I wonder why.
Mainly because I didn't win my battles very often. So it feels like more of a human timeline.
Interesting.
Type of change. But then maybe if you've been around
Kratos says they're more than men.
For
He says that to
years.
Atreus. He says they're more than, they're not. So a human change, does that apply to Kratos?
No, not a human change, a human timeline. Like if I've seen this happen over maybe, is it 2 years, 3 years?
Oh, that's like a fraction for him.
It feels like that's a long time for a lot of change. But for him, that's like nothing. And it wouldn't have been 3 years either, just because we played it over that period of time.
And then it also makes you wonder what was Faye's influence.
Yes.
And Faye's another good example of the audience feels how Kratos does.
Yeah, we don't know.
Kind of like how I said how we felt about, we don't know about Kratos' past. We realized very quickly we didn't know a lot about Faye, and Kratos didn't know a lot about Faye. He didn't know she was a giant, that she fought Thor, that she knew that, she knew their prophecies. And that's a big thing, is where Faye's almost like I really like in the first game, the element of like shadows. So you have Faye's shadow is over the entire story of she sent them on this quest. We don't know what she looks like. We don't know what she sounds like in the first game. And another shadow we get a lot of in the game is Odin. We hear a lot about Odin. Even Thor, we hear about these characters, and I really like that we're never shown them, because it leaves it up to us to like imagine what they'd look like and how they act. And I love hearing the stories from Mimir of how they do these things. Sorry, I'm still recovering from a bit of an illness from Japan, so if my voice gets croaky when I'm going on a tangent, that's why. So I have to take a break to have some water. So we were talking about, there's already so many tangents we're going down. So is Kratos a good parent?
I think he's a good parent, but if Atreus had criticisms, I'd be in agreement with that.
I think it's another change. He isn't a good parent at the beginning. He's very like, he feels like a Spartan training a soldier. In the first game, that's what he's doing.
I think you could still argue he's a good parent, but he's not a perfect parent.
Yeah.
And
he's preparing him for like the world, I feel, is what he's doing. And
I don't criticize where he's coming from in his behavior in the first game. But as a child, would you be wishing for more?
Trace is like 7 and like he's young, Yeah. But then in the last game, especially at the end of the game, I feel like those are the two easy comparison points, is Kratos trusts Thor's daughter because she's friends with Atreus. And that obviously shows a level of trust and respect between the two. And that at the end of Ragnarok, when they're saying bye, he says, we only got here because of how you treat people and how you talk to them and who you trust. Obviously, Tyr being the exception, which we'll get to that in a moment. But
that was both of them.
that was everyone's fault. But it is true that I think the good guys don't win if you don't have Kratos and Atreus' viewpoints.
Yeah,
like if we had Kratos' viewpoint the whole game, where they wouldn't have won. And obviously if they only had Atreus, they would definitely not win. But they needed the two of them, of Atreus representing Faye's faith in people. And like Kratos said, and this is insane when you compare to the Kratos we knew before, he says to Atreus during Ragnarok at the battle, he says, I was wrong. And to ever hear Kratos saying those words specifically to Atreus out of everyone, and he says, open your heart to it. And obviously the theme in the first game is Kratos keeps saying you have to close your heart to their suffering, and he repeats it in the second game quite a bit. And he makes that change obviously through Faye's influence. And there's the night before Ragnarok, you have a dream that Faye's in, and that's one where Faye says to grieve deeply is to love fully, and it's just tears happening when you're watching that. The writing in the game's phenomenal. Like every line is incredible. Every line has a purpose, and the humor's on point. The humor I never felt took away from the story, usually enhanced it, especially someone like Mimir. He's just like a great comedic relief. But I think it was so interesting seeing Kratos give up control to Atreus at the end. I think that shows the level of respect he has in Atreus, and that maybe, and this is once again the whole thing around parenting, is maybe we can learn things from our kids, which it is like a tough pill to swallow. Not that we're parents, but I feel like it's a general consensus you get is that the parents know what's good and the kid listens. And this story shows that that's very true, don't get me wrong, but maybe children can teach us something, maybe because they're not burdened by the world, or maybe they just have a different way of looking at things because they have the other parents' influence on them that maybe you don't feel it as deeply as they might during their influential years.
I think on that note as well, it does a good job at showing how the familial relationship changes over time. Like I think if you try and put yourself in Kratos' shoes, if Atreus is meant to be 7 or 10 or whatever in the first game, I would probably also be hesitant to let a 7-year-old maybe have my deceased partner's ashes. Obviously, if they're
I know.
parent too, but if they're 14 or 15 in the next game, you trust them more as almost like a young adult.
Okay, that's
rather
fair.
than a
That's
young
fair.
child. That's not to say that we can't learn from young children or that young adults can just do whatever they want and they don't need to be parented.
Yeah.
But it did a good job at showing the change between... Because you can assume that Kratos is like vaguely the same age, particularly being a god.
Yeah.
There isn't really a lot of development happening over, 7 or 8 years? But for Atreus, that's huge. There's heaps of development over that life period. So,
but I think Atreus still has a lot of... Even in the first game, he has a lot of influence on the story. When Kratos remembers finding Boulder at the gate that'll take them to the giants, Kratos is fighting him, and then Atreus shoots Kratos. That's a big moment. And another very important moment is when we're in Alfheim and Kratos goes into the light of Alfheim because he hears Faye's voice. He leaves Atreus behind and he fights off all the Dark Elves for a day by himself.
It's a long time.
Because it's a long time compared to how long he's in the light for. And that's an example of, surely, if Atreus can fend off an army of Dark Elves for a night, there has to be some trust given. And by the end of the game, the trust is given because he's allowed to spread the ashes as well. And there's a lot more that goes into it in terms of when he sees the prophecy, but then Kratos doesn't share the fate that's shown to him at the end of the first game, which is Kratos will die and Atreus will live, and who knows what happens with Odin and Thor, but he doesn't share that. And that's another whole theme is fate. And once again, it's hard to discuss fate as a theme because obviously in the real world, whether you believe it or not, it's hard to discuss it as a theme because it is so pertinent in Ragnarok. Like Ragnarok, one of the core elements of the story and a lot of the missions are doing is around fate and trying to discover what does fate say and trying to ignore it and undo it. And how much do you think fate is real in this universe? Because the Norns, they seem very accurate in their predictions when we meet them.
But they also do emphasize that there is no fate at the same time and that you basically make your own future. So despite the fact that they might have a general idea of what happens, the nitty gritty and if you really care about it, the main beats can be influenced by how you traverse the world yourself.
Yeah.
I think fate does exist in this universe. I mean, it's probably what you'd expect from a mythological setting, but that can be changed. And maybe that completely
But then
undoes...
is that not fate then? Yeah.
I think that there is like a timeline and that maybe if you change it, you're diverging from that original timeline. Not in a Marvel sense where there's then two timelines, but that maybe there's a predicted path that can waver, but 9 times out of 10 maybe things will follow the path that is fated.
Okay.
But if you get a powerful being like Kratos or even Atreus as well,
they can change.
They can falter that.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. So, is there much else you want to say on Kratos? I feel like we only kind of scratched the surface, and he'll come up when we talk about other characters.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's the parenting and the change, and obviously, the grief. I think in the Ragnarok, it's preventing grief around Atreus. He's very protective of Atreus in the second game. You can tell because he knows. Well, he's seen the fate of him dying. I think is why he takes on that role of he's trying to prepare Atreus to live on his own. And which by the end of the game that does happen, but not in a way we would have expected. And that's why we see maybe Kratos being quite militant at the beginning of Ragnarok, is because he's seen that fate and he needs to prepare Atreus for living on his own. And that's preempting grief almost to protect Atreus from it.
And it's like forcing him to trust him.
Yeah.
As in, if Kratos is not going to be here, Atreus is going to be on his own and has to make his own decisions, so he needs to let go. He's being forced to let go to some extent.
And that's something we see in the story a lot is Atreus is sneaking out at first from the hideout, but then after a while he tells people where he's going, and once again there's that trust that's built out over the course of the game, which is quite interesting. So maybe we'll move on to our next character, which is obviously Atreus. That's the second biggest one. What I love about Atreus, his theme is the inverse of Kratos. Sorry, we're going to do music for a bit. Kratos' theme, how awesome is it? Like, it's just
very well fitting.
The brass, it's a few notes and it just fits. It sets the tone for the character really quickly. The dun dun dun. You feel the power behind him in like just a few notes really quickly. And I think Ben McCreary did the score, phenomenal score. And all of the music, when you listen to the soundtrack, you learn a lot about the characters, about Atreus, about Faye, about all of the realms you visit. And the most interesting, I think, insight, which most people know this, is Atreus' theme is Kratos' theme in reverse, but it's a bit faster, it's a bit scrappier, it's not got an orchestra, so it's got a
more
few...
youthful.
Yeah, more youthful. It's only got a few Nordic instruments. I think it only has 5 or 6 instruments in the music, so it's meant to be a bit more contained. And I love how that music can represent character of... He's forging a different path. Well, Atreus' theme is called A New Path, I think, or A Sun's Path. So it's clearly different from Kratos' path, and the inverse of the music clearly demonstrates that. And the fact that it's not using the entire sweeping orchestra to give us this theme. I think that's really... I love the music for this game. It really shows a lot, reveals a lot. I think a real benefit games have over other media is that they can develop their themes over several hours. In a movie, you only have 2 hours to develop your leitmotif, so you're really restricted. Whereas in a game, you might have 30 to 50 hours to reuse these themes and to use them in different ways and to have very niche themes that appear only a few times and that you really have to listen out for. So I think that's a great bonus of the games, is you really get that music side of it. So with Atreus, this is very interesting because at first you're just sick of him. Like in the first game, he really gets on your nerves.
Particularly when he's told he's a god.
Yeah, then he just goes off the rails and he's like, he's saying whatever and he's just always getting in the way. But then he gets really arrogant and ahead of himself and he's telling off Brock and Sindri when he really shouldn't be. But the issue is there that it works. It makes Brock and Sindri work together again. So I don't know what the messaging is there. I think he says, I'm sick of stupid little people and their stupid little problems. He says that to Sindri about him and Brock not being friends.
Yeah.
And then after that, Brock and Sindri start working together again. So I never liked how that's what causes them to work together, Atreus' outlash. And obviously the meme of how do you know? It's kind of like, look, killing people has consequences. Killing a god just has consequences. I don't think Kratos would have special knowledge. I feel like it's common sense. If you kill a god, something's going to happen. You kill a person. Anyway, that's a bit of a tangent. Atreus' character is one that he grows on you, for me, begrudgingly. It's always I never want to like him, but when I keep playing, I'm like, okay, he grows on you towards the end of...
I think just how much... the Ironwood section.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, that's just commenting on how, the first game, it's it's my little friend and he's helping me out, but he's kind of annoying.
Times, yeah.
Whereas by that section, I was like, I want to play this. I don't want to go back to being Kratos right
I know,
now.
it's just so interesting, yeah. And then at the end of the story, when he goes on his own, you kind of feel like you've lost the character there. And it's just impressive how they made that character really impactful and meaningful. And obviously, Atreus pushes Kratos and his character development a long way. Obviously, it pushes his buttons a lot. But then the trick is that you kind of get Atreus at times when he's making the wrong choice, especially in Ragnarok when he's going to Odin and he's doing all these things that he really shouldn't be and he's sneaking off, but you still understand why and you still kind of root for him.
And you want to see what he's up to as well, because I think as the player you also develop more of a trust in your sidekick.
Yeah, and he definitely develops leadership throughout the game. And once again, it's all about Ragnarok, but that really is the game where he gets that sense of leadership of bringing people together and inspiring them. And he has his language abilities, which really pulls people together. So he's another interesting character. I think similar themes. Well, the biggest theme of grief is he thinks Kratos will die, I believe, at the end of Ragnarok. He's pretty sure Kratos is going to die. And once again, it's that, do we maybe not go ahead with this because of what might happen to my personal life?
And maybe because Kratos also... evidently thinks that's going to happen as well. Both of them are approaching it from the same perspective there.
And it is tricky, Atreus, when he's helping Odin, you don't know if he's manipulating Odin or if he's actually giving in to the manipulation of Odin. It's always a really complicated relationship there.
Which way is it going?
Yeah, because you feel early on he's maybe going there actually to just see what the vibe is, but then after a while he's trying to infiltrate a bit. But then that relationship's interesting because I remember the end of the game when Odin shows you the split in the universe and the mask. For a moment, you kind of believe Odin that maybe Atreus should put the mask on and see what's behind there. And I do we never see what's behind the mask and that little fracture.
I think for storytelling purposes, I agree, but
obviously you want to know what it is. It has the knowledge of the universe. You want to see what that looks like. Yeah, but I like that reservation of that's Odin's life's work was trying to get to it, and we never get to see it. I think it takes a lot of maturity on the writer's part to not show us something like that.
That's true.
And I think it's very thematic of maybe some things aren't worth the price of it, because Odin lost his eye just trying to access. You don't know what would have happened with them. And similar, I guess, with Atreus, maybe we'll go through some of the other kids. So we got Angraboda. She's another one where
her.
It was interesting. I found her POV interesting, and like she served her life's purpose, and then she thought, well, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
And she does take a bit of like a break from the story, but she comes back at the end once again being like, oh no, I get to dictate my fate. Found her interesting. Thrud, Thor's daughter, really interesting character because she's a lot more mature than Atreus, but she's a lot more mature than she should be because of her father.
Probably than both her parents.
Oh, definitely.
You could
Because
argue.
you see she's pulling her father out of drinking. And it's actually a bit confronting when you see those scenes. And she's a character that develops a lot. She trusts Atreus, and then obviously that trust is broken after it, but then she trusts him again once she realizes what Odin's really like. She's another really... I wish we maybe got a bit more of her towards the end because she was a really interesting character.
I wanted to see her Valkyrie arc, even just...
True, I know. Or in Valhalla. I know. Valhalla, I'm glad they didn't show us too much of everyone, but... Yeah.
Add her in there, but...
True, because if you're just trying to be a Valkyrie, she could have been there. Anyway, so I like the kids. I'm glad they didn't feel like a second tier... character. So I'm glad they still got their development.
Yeah.
The next person I think has to be Mimir. He's wonderful, but Mimir, when I think of him very like critically and deeply beyond just he's a fun guy. He's the lore
head.
dump guy. Like when you see something, he tells you the story behind it. His story for me is all about redemption and atonement, just like everyone. And I love atonement. Redemption's okay because redemption usually the character dies and they get redeemed. Atonement I love when you have to redeem yourself and then live with that and you have to apologize and you have to make amends and people might not just forgive you straight away like we could have gone in the hunt for Ben Solo. Anyway, that's not this video. But Mimir, what sticks out to me, and God of War is the only game that I can say really does this. The side quests elevate the story. They don't feel like you're ticking off a XP skill tree list. You're actually engaging with the characters. You learn more about the characters to the point where I'd say you don't get the full story unless you do the side missions. And Mimir's one in particular with the Lundinhjar, that's the whale.
Yeah.
And that one is when he was Odin's right-hand man in Neverdalir. That's the dwarf, realm. He put this whale in chains because they needed to take something from it. And then he obviously felt horrible about it. And then he's talking to Kratos about, I should have done this. Then Kratos says, the man you are there. It's very much like Kratos telling his arc of change to Mimir.
Yeah.
But then what I appreciate, once again, maturity on behalf of the writers, you free the whale, but it doesn't go anywhere. It stays there because Kratos says it's used to the chains. And then Mimir has to live the rest of his life, however long that is, as a head, but knowing that just because you think you've made amends doesn't mean you actually have, or you can't actually revert things to how they were before.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to live with that, and sometimes you got to forgive yourself, which can be a really hard thing to do.
And maybe living with not knowing as well.
Exactly.
As in, when this whale was chained, he's living with the almost grief of that. But when it's been freed and it's not moving straight away, 100 years down the line, has it moved?
It might not.
It might not, but it might.
It might,
and
but
I guess he just has to hope.
Yeah. And I think that's I really appreciate showing atonement. And sometimes atonement doesn't always work out how you want it to, but it's not for you to complain about because you're the one trying to make amends. You can't complain that, the whale didn't move on or the dwarves don't like me now because I tried to help destroy the mines that I built. Another great side mission is with the... I can't remember the name there's so many weird names in the game. The giant jellyfish in the desert. That's one like some side missions you can play with Freya or Atreus. That one's really meant for Atreus because you free the 2 jellyfish and then they release all their kids. And then I think Mimir says, they'll die. And then Atreus says, so why do they do it? And then Kratos says, what does he say again? He just says something
like that's what you do.
That's what parents do is they like give up their life for their children. And you're playing and you're like, this is a side mission that I could have missed so easily. And that's what I appreciate. And you get some really great missions with Freya about her marriage to Odin. So I think before we move on to Freya, I think that's the main thing with Odin that's always stuck with me. You get, obviously there's a lot of Mimir content, but that one mission with the whale has always stuck with me. And it's always reminded me that even if you feel you've changed and you're making amends, you have to accept that sometimes you can't, even if you really try. And I think it's a good lesson to learn in life because we're all going to make mistakes and hopefully we all try to make up for them. But sometimes we'll learn that you just can't. You can't revert things to how they were before. You can always try to make it better than it is now. But sometimes you're going to have to accept the grief that you can't undo your mistakes.
And that you can only influence your own behavior.
Exactly.
Like, even though you might genuinely have changed and be seeking forgiveness, a person who may have been hurt is not obligated to give that forgiveness.
Yeah, I know. And that's such a tough lesson to learn. And then it's so complicated around, should Mimir forgive himself? Why? Like, does that make everything fine? If he forget, like, he should, because you don't want to live your life with that all the time. But then it kind of feels like a disingenuous thing. Like, well, I forgive myself, so it's all fine now.
Yeah.
And it's obviously this is a very human story that they're telling, even though it's God's. But I think Mimir's one of my favorite real character intrigue, and it's only like one side mission, and that's always stuck with me. Just that thing about you can't always undo what you've done, and that's just the way it is, unfortunately. And I'm sure Kratos feels that way about destroying Greece and killing thousands of just normal, peaceful civilians who had nothing to do with the gods. But it's just about trying to be better. Don't be sorry, be better. You should be sorry, but you also need to try to be better, and learning that sometimes people might not receive you trying to be better, and you need, in the face of that, you need to still keep going, which would be a great theme in the hunt for Ben Solo, but we never got that. Anyway, but I think that's about Mimir for me. I think obviously he's the comedic relief. Very well written, well acted.
Yeah.
He's great as being the lore guy, telling you all these great stories, and tells you a lot about Odin and about the Asgardian court. But I think that's my real insight into Mimir. Is there anything you wanted to bring up?
I feel like that's definitely the main beats. But maybe with what you were saying earlier about gods versus human stories, I think in most cultures the gods are meant to like reflect
Definitely, yes,
humanity. And back to Greece now, if I'm remembering my mythology properly, aren't they meant to reflect different parts of human life? So instead of just the gods being human but better, it might be the god of war. It represents maybe anger.
Yeah.
Or the god of sunlight might represent like farming. Like there's instead of just being complex human beings, they're almost less complicated, and that's what makes them somewhat juvenile in their behavior, because they've only really got one thing that's their thing. Yeah.
So Mimir, once again, great character, really interesting. Next one is Freya. She's when we first meet her, she's the Witch of the Woods. And I forgot that when you were playing the game, she isn't Freya at first, and you know nothing about her, like anything. And you discover the course of the game, she's Balder's mother, and she was married to Odin. And she's an exile. She's been banished, and she did the protective curse on Balder, and you learn a lot of that history. And throughout the first game, the end of the first game, the real thing that sticks with me is the fact that you save her life by killing Balder, but she hates you. And that's where the first game picks up, is she's trying to kill you as vengeance for that. And Atreus, says to her at the end of the first game, "We saved your life. Why are you angry?" And she doesn't answer. But then later, Kratos kind of says in Ragnarok, he says, "Well, it wasn't our choice to make."
Which is interesting.
Do you think it was their choice to make?
I think if I was in their shoes, I would make the same choice.
I think I agree, yeah.
But it's interesting to see how that impacts other people. And are you taking choices out of people's hands if they're choosing to put themselves in harm's way? It's interesting. I feel like I don't really have much to comment on that.
It is interesting. I think it was the right call to make to protect her. I never really understood the whole, it was like, I know Kratos says that it was your choice to make, I shouldn't have done that, but I'm still kind of like,
it's possibly the parent-child relationship
well,
that maybe we don't fully understand.
That's fair. And it's that dynamic of she'd rather her son die, or she'd rather she die than her son die.
Unrelated to God of War, but I've had conversations with family just about current life events and how you would react if your child was the perpetrator of a pretty terrible thing in society. And whereas I might say, I think you can disown a child, I've had people in my life who are parents say that until you're a parent, you don't know that. Understand what that's like.
How do you know?
So,
it's really tricky, because I think obviously, we're not parents, so we don't know what that's like. But it's parenting's a big theme in these games about how do parents treat their children, how are they overprotective, and how is that worse than if they were just, because if Freya wasn't overprotective of Balder, he would have had a normal life.
His pain would have.
Exactly. And you see, like anything, the closer Kratos tries to grip Atreus, the more he slips away. And because he's being so protective, Atreus is pushing away from him. Whereas if he gave him that space, maybe Atreus would have been by his side, but then Atreus maybe wouldn't have had that character growth that he would have had on his own. So, it's obviously it's nice that the good guys won in the end, but you always wonder if Kratos was like the perfect parent, maybe they wouldn't have won because Atreus wouldn't have learnt these lessons on his own, or maybe they would have won because everything would have gone to plan. So I think I think parenting's hard for us to talk about. You know, obviously you can only talk from one perspective and you can be envious and be like, oh, parents should do this. But until you're a parent, you really don't know. But I think for me, the big thing with parenting, like I said earlier, is that people younger than us can teach us a lot.
Yeah, and that goes for everyone. It doesn't have to be parent
No,
child.
it doesn't.
That could be workplace. That could
anyone
be
you meet. Everyone has something to teach
the new
you.
grad employee can teach a manager something, or
Definitely. But I think, and it's not even like technical knowledge that a trace knows how to hunt or to prepare something, but it's just the way to look at life of a trace, trusting people and trying to meet people where they're at and help everyone. Because that's the big thing with a trace, from what I remember, is he's always trying to help people, and Kratos is saying, don't do that because someone's going to die or you'll get betrayed or something. Whereas Atreus, maybe because he's younger, he's able to do that. Once again, maybe that's Faye's influence, because all the scenes we get with Faye in Ragnarok, she's always teasing out the best in Kratos of open your heart, trust people, love them, hold your own son. You know, like she says that to him. So I think Faye, maybe we can do Faye now, I think. We can make it for Fran a bit. I think Faye's one, like I said in the first game, it's so interesting how where we feel like Kratos and Atreus, that they don't know who she is. And we definitely don't know who she is, but they thought they did. And the more they're learning, because Kratos, as you go through the story, he says she knew we'd go on this path of the whole game you play in. Especially in the second game, you'll learn she has a lot of history with Thor that she obviously never mentioned to Kratos. So once again, it's the ethics around keeping secrets.
Do you think Atreus is in the same boat as Kratos?
In terms of?
Like, if he's meant to be somewhere between the ages of 7 and 10, I don't know if he really comprehends much.
In the game, he's pretty, like, not mature, but he can understand things. Like, he's not stupid.
I don't know if the weight of the, like, secrets is impacting him the way it is Kratos.
No, it definitely impacts Kratos the most. But then it's trying to figure out, was it ethical for Faye to keep those secrets from Kratos? Because once again, they end up in the... it's
or
tough.
Was it a fate thing where if she had told them, it would have undone it? So
maybe
she didn't want to keep a secret.
I know, but she didn't even tell him about her history with the giants, and that she knew Brock and Sindri. Like, they're the ones that made the axe.
Did Kratos tell her about his history in Greece?
I assume so. From what I remember, I think he would have. So she's definitely withholding her past from him. Back to Freya a bit. I think we've mainly talked about, it was mainly the parenting thing. Once again, forgiveness actually is a big thing. Enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yep.
Because beginning of Ragnarok, she was about to kill Atreus when he came to her. Who knows why he went by himself to go see her. But then them two, from what I remember, Kratos and Freya, they become allies when you're in, I can't remember what the realm is called, like the jungle realm. When they go to, there's like there's some thing they have to break so that Freya can go anywhere in the 9 realms. And throughout that's when Kratos says, if I had my time again, it was my choice to make. I would have let you die. But
that's what she wanted to hear.
Yeah, that's what she wants. And then that's interesting when she forgives him. And at first it's like a conditional forgiveness of like, well, we've got to get Odin and then I'll deal with you. But then obviously the course of the game, she comes to respect Kratos, I think as a parent mostly. And then as like a general and a god and whatever comes after that. And a friend. And I think one of the best examples of a platonic friendship in media, dare I say. Because there's a very intense respect for one another for their stations in life. And I'm so glad there was never like an inkling of pushing romance between the two of them. I think maybe like a character might comment on it, but there's never in the narrative you feel like they're going down that road. And I feel like most stories would have pushed that.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm so glad they did, especially in Valhalla as well.
Yeah.
And that she respects him as a person who's really changed. And then he respects her as the Queen of the Valkyries and a strong leader. So I think I really like her characterization. I like how the writers treated her. And she's another strong character. And our next ones are Brock and Sindri. So these are the really interesting ones because this is where we get a big dichotomy of two characters that are side by side. You know, Sindri's very organized, germaphobe, very polite. Brock's the opposite of all those things. And he's one of the more fun one to be around. But then this is really where the grief thing comes to fruition. But a big thing, I remember I saw this in a YouTube video essay was saying, so obviously, if you're into this part, spoilers, but Odin is Tyr.
Or Tyr is
Odin.
being
and
inhabited by...
Or his projection, whatever it is. Tyr isn't Tyr. It's Odin playing Tyr.
Yeah.
Brock is the one to discover it. Everyone else is fooled by like the whole. It's when you rewatch the scenes, you think, how is no one picking up on this? And the scene where Brock finds out, it's like Tyr goes from being this quiet, oh, we shouldn't fight.
I mean, you just can't stand him as well.
Yeah, and he's just getting and then it makes sense why he gets on your nerves the whole game. Because remember, you were playing the game, and you're like, he's so annoying. Why do we have him around? And I was like, just wait,
You wait
a little bit. But so Tyr in this scene, he does this massive 180 from being a pacifist to saying, let's take the fight to Odin. I'm going to hold on the mask and I'm going to go in my room and get ready. But let's go fight Odin. I know a way to Asgard. And Brock's the one that sees through the deception because Brock is the only person in the story who's honest. Brock never lies to people. He's truly honest. He tells people what he thinks of them.
Trait, I think,
and most people, obviously, it's like he's very honest, like abrasive in your face. But there is something to say about the brotherhood between Kratos and Brock in that he wanted Brock there to bless Dropnir because he wanted a real blacksmith to bless it. And I really like the relationship the two of them have of Brock's honesty. Like very brash, but that's why he sees through the deception because he's the only person of all the characters that always speaks his mind, which obviously can be a bad thing at times, but in this instance it's a good thing. And then obviously the flip side of that is Sindri, who his lie, which you would remember is one of the biggest lies in the game, is that he never tells Brock that he's dead and then he's been resurrected.
He did die.
That Brock died in an accident.
Officially died,
and then Sindri brought back, I think, 3/4 of his soul or something. And Brock finds this out.
He doesn't get an afterlife.
I forgot that. He doesn't get an afterlife anymore. So Sindri's deprived Brock of an afterlife. And then it makes sense at the beginning of the first game why they're not talking to each other because Sindri probably knows that. And he doesn't want to be near. He's probably weird about it. And then it really changes the dynamic when you replay the game and Brock discovers it, and then when he's dying, he tells Sindri just to let him die. And then the interesting thing around grief is how Sindri lashes out at Atreus is there's a few angles to it. The first one is Atreus did let Tyr in, and Sindri has just given all these things to Atreus. He's given his home, his Dropnir, all of his, wares, his house, all of his time, his thoughts, everything. Yeah. And then this is thrown back at him as his brother dying. Whether it's Atreus' fault or not, we can get into that. But the other one is he's probably lashing out at himself. Yeah. Because now when Brock dies, he's responsible for him not having an afterlife. No one else is.
And it's not like, give me 50 years and I'll see him again.
Yeah, exactly. He won't. You'll never see him again. And so I think Sindri's lashing out at Atreus, but he's also lashing out at himself for doing that. And then that's also another example, powerful example of grief there. And about how that's a really off-putting example of how people might not forgive you, even if it's not your fault. So maybe we can get into it later, but if we assume it wasn't Atreus' fault for Brock dying, Sindri doesn't view it that way. No. And I don't think Sindri is going to change how he feels about it. I don't think he's fair
about it, but there's obviously a lot.
Well, let's get into it. I know you've been very adamant on this point.
I don't know if I have much to add to it other than just I think it was unfair. Like I think Sindri was, when all is said and done, mad at himself.
Yes.
When you have friends or dare we say family, you offer things to them, like relationships. I don't feel it's a one-way street. Like at the end of the day, Kratos and Atreus, primarily them, succeeded through Ragnarok.
And they're trying to make a better world for everyone.
Like, Sindri and
that's fair.
Even the ghost of Brock are like benefiting from that as well. And no, they couldn't have done that without Sindri and Brock's house, but then Sindri and Brock wouldn't get to see the other side of Ragnarok without them.
Damn.
Like it's not.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was fair that Sindri was going on about how he's just given and given because I think he has received as well, even if it's just in the friendship or brotherhood with Atreus.
Yeah.
And he didn't see through it either.
Yeah. Well, that's something Kratos says is all of them are deceived. It wasn't Atreus was deceived. Kratos was deceived as well. And Freya and Freyr. And Brock and Sindri and Mimir.
And a bad thing happened because of it. But that was no one's fault. And just because the bad thing was made worse because of Sindri's own actions, that's not Atreus' fault.
Yeah,
or
I
any
agree with
the
that.
rest of the gang.
But then once again, it's an example of a human experience of not everyone's going to
Dwarven
like if you dwarven human experience of if you're Sindri, that's how you view reality.
Yeah.
Like that's his I don't think he's
he lost his
in denial.
brother
I don't think he's
permanently, yeah.
lying to himself. I think he believes that to be
I
true.
agree. But
he's
it's
not pretending.
frustrating to watch.
Exactly.
Doesn't mean I get to judge it, but
No,
you
but
feel bad for
you feel bad, and
Sindri because they both lose.
They
that
both lost, but
relationship.
it is Sindri's fault.
Yeah.
But then if it's tough. Like if you had a loved one who passed away and you knew you could bring them back, you can't say you wouldn't do it. You can't say blanket.
No.
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't judge that. As difficult as it is the first time around pre God of War 2018, but I think the directing all of this towards Atreus and then by extension Kratos and Mimir and everyone afterwards, that's what was not fair.
Yeah. Interesting.
Anyway.
Yeah. So I think, Sindri is a great example of how grief consumes. And we have all these examples of preemptive grief, Kratos' grief of Faye in the beginning of the first game where it really builds a distance between him and Atreus. And then, Sindri's grief, Mimir's grief, Freya's grief, Odin's preemptive grief of Ragnarok and his own death. I think quickly Odin's a very well done character. Like I feel like you fall into his manipulation a bit in the story. Like you're like, well, maybe Kratos should strike peace with Odin, and maybe everyone would be happy. And you're like, no, you can't trust it. But
look at Freya as well, though.
Well, I
was thinking earlier talking about her, seeing the aftermath of the failed marriage with Odin.
Where that leads her.
Not just where that leads her, but I think there's a lot of parallels to the real world with that too. Like she's been coaxed into this marriage with a powerful man who doesn't really view her as an equal. That then obviously does not succeed, and then you lose relationships with. If I'm remembering right, is Thor there?
I don't think so.
No, who's Thor's mother?
I don't know. I can't remember. I think maybe like a giant.
Ah,
I think
that would make sense.
Yeah.
But there is a family. I know that there's, pardon me, like other Norse gods who are then the relations of Freya and Odin, or offspring, I should say, and then how that impacts them and all of
Asgard.
It's
not a happy family. It is not.
No, it's exactly. And then seeing how she's being treated by someone who was her husband, like even though their marriage that was initiated not out of not a love marriage, I believe it was an arranged.
Oh yeah, to broker peace between the Aesir and the Vanir.
Correct. Yeah, but you would still hope that there would be this respect.
I know
between them. And to see how Odin treats Freya and his
banished everyone.
Everyone,
like how he treats Thor.
Everyone. But interesting seeing Freya's the life that she's had to live. I think that puts Odin into perspective as well.
Definitely.
Like, though we can see the manipulation up front, we also have Freya in our ear kind of telling us, that's not true. Like, I've lived through this.
Well, a really good example is in the middle of Ragnarok or towards the end, Atreus says, maybe we should work with Odin. And then like Mimir cracks and he's like, look at me, look at Freya, look at Tyr.
Mimir as
Odin did this to us. You know, and that, I think that's, you remind, like whenever you're with Odin, you're like, oh, yeah, he's cool. But then you think about all the people you've met and all the people he's hurt and all the giants that have been killed, and puts into perspective. And I think, and I saw someone else say this online, which I really agree with, Odin would have won if he was just patient. I think his patience is his biggest, impatience is his biggest downfall. Because especially as Tyr, the deception worked. There was no question about it. It was just once he got that, like his life obsession was the mask. Yeah. Once he got his hands on the mask, that's when he really got into like fifth gear and said, we have to go to Asgard. Let's get ready. Let's take the fight. And that's when Brock discovers it. If he had just been a bit calmer about it and said, oh, I know this hidden passage. Let's go through it. And then he springs the trap.
But even his violence towards Brock, like if he'd let Brock make
crash
the
out,
accusation and then he'd just maybe given the mask back and said, I'm sorry, you feel that way or something along those lines.
I didn't mean to offend you.
A week later he takes the mask. That might have worked. Like,
so that's another interesting, like his downfall is just patience.
Yeah.
And that's
and rashness.
Yeah, and maybe we can go through the Aesir now. So Thor, he's one of those characters at first you think you know everything about him. When you first meet, he's just the big brutish guy with the hammer, right? The brawn guy. Yeah, that's all he does. But you realize he's just a victim of a bad father and trauma. And you feel, and especially when you're with Thrud and Atreus in Asgard, you really start to feel bad for him at a certain point, and how his sons, Magni and Modi, were sent to Kratos and they died, and Odin couldn't care less about them. And you do at a point start feeling bad for Thor and his wife, how it's impacted them. And even at the end, there's that, everyone's seen it, amazing scene where Thor goes, don't you know who I am? Like, we're destroyers, we kill. And Kratos says, yeah, I know, but what will you do now? That's another awesome example of redemption of, yeah, that's who you are, but what will you do now? And it just pains me that Odin killed Thor, because you just imagine what could have been if Thor, even if you got to fight with Thor for a bit and he dies, or he survives the story and you see how, Thor would not be welcomed by everyone, even if he became a good guy. Hunt of Ben Solo.
Kratos' own story.
But it is Kratos' story of, like, Thor is a terrible person, but he's a product of his environment. But he cares so much for his family. Yeah. So he's not an evil person deep down. He's just in a horrible environment. Yeah. And he's being used for one purpose, and he's being abused for it by
And that
Odin.
He's still being used by his parent in thousands of years.
Exactly, yeah.
Life,
and then, like how direct...
Puppeteered by Odin.
Yeah, and when Thor stops fighting Kratos, Odin is just so honest. He says, you don't think, you fight.
Yeah.
And it's just he's that direct.
You kill? Is that what he said?
Yeah, exactly. It's a simple something concept. And you do feel bad for Thor by then. And you feel bad when he gets killed, which you would never imagine at the beginning of the game. And when you're going through it, you'd mourn Thor in some capacity. And you feel bad for Thrud as well, because you can tell she's really trying to help him. He's a really interesting character, and another great example of the writing. Hey, you could have just simplified him as just like a one-dimensional, he's the boss with the hammer and he has a whole bunch of health. But they make him a really endearing character that you do sympathize with by the end, and you actually kind of want him to join your team.
He can still be responsible for his own behavior, at least to some extent, but you can understand where it's come from and how it's developed. And
then the offshoot of that is Heimdall, which I loved Heimdall in this game. Because you may be used to the Marvel version of Heimdall, who's like a good guy and he's very calm and wise and kind and noble. And this one, he's just a brat. He's the worst. That's a good word. He's the worst person ever. It's because you can see into the future. He just like dodges all your attacks. Yeah. And once again, it's his arrogance that gets him killed.
I think that's what's so frustrating about him as a character.
He's just so arrogant, but he's kind of right. Like when you're fighting as Atreus and even a bit as Kratos, it's hard to fight him and to figure out his patterns. And he's Odin's best soldier by far. And this is really where I think we disagreed very intensely on when Kratos kills Heimdall. Has Kratos just gone back in time to killing Zeus and Athena and Poseidon? He's killing a god. Like, I know I might preempt you. He's protecting his son. He's helping out Ragnarok. He's, fighting Odin. But at the end of the day, he is killing a god. You can cut it however you want. He is the god killer, which he is known for back in Greece. So I think it's also the violence of it. It's not like
that was a fair point.
There comes a point where it goes beyond self-defense, and he's got Heimdall on the ground and he's choking him. Yeah. And you've got Mimir yelling at Kratos to stop. And Mimir's, he's the comedic relief. So when you know Mimir's that intense, you know something's deeply wrong. And after the scene, they're really not talking about it. They're avoiding the topic. So is that a scene of the ghost of Sparta coming out? Once again, with change and redemption, maybe it isn't a one-off destination. It's something you're always striving to achieve, and you might falter along the way. And that maybe doesn't necessarily undo all of your character development or personal growth since that time. But it doesn't, like when you think about fighting Heimdall, you think it's going to be this awesome fight. And it doesn't feel like a triumph. And I think it doesn't feel like a victory when you kill him.
No, it feels like sad.
Yeah, it feels I felt disturbed, like you're choking him. Yeah. There's blood everywhere. The light leaves his eyes. Mimir's yelling at you. And then you just grab Galahorn off him and you walk off. It doesn't feel like you finished this epic boss fight and you got all these upgrades. Yeah. You're like, that feels a bit uncomfortable how it ended. Yeah.
I think he made the right decision. Mm-hmm. I think he tried. He
did try, because he blew up his arm and he said, just stay put.
Well, I rewatched it before our discussion today. He didn't just blow. He had him pinned.
True, yeah.
Gave him the opportunity to concede. He very much did not.
Yeah.
He then blew up his arm.
Yeah.
And then the primal end of Heimdall's life came after that.
Yeah. And he's threatening Atreus the whole time,
like,
which with Kratos, you just don't threaten Atreus. Yeah.
I think, again, putting myself into Kratos or just any parent's shoes.
What else is he meant to do?
What was he meant to do?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, maybe he didn't have to do it in the way that he did it. And that could be an example of, you said, development is continual. It's not just like you flip a switch and then you've changed. Yeah, exactly. It's the journey along the way. But Atreus is clearly everything to Kratos. Like, he's not just his legacy, but Kratos is expecting to die, and he's dying for Atreus at this point in time. So he's not about to let that be sabotaged by someone as arrogant and cruel, I think you could say. It's not, I mean, he wouldn't let that at all, but particularly when he's given this person an opportunity to back down and either go their separate ways or maybe try and pull a Thor and go against Odin, but he doesn't. And I think maybe there's an element of him being the god killer as the changed Kratos. Like, the god killer is in him, but I think he can still change whilst bringing that version of himself to the forefront again. I'm always thinking through to Valhalla now, but...
you can't.
Yeah. You'd know it's spoilers if you're this far into the video, but where he confronts his younger self.
Yeah, what an amazing scene.
I think he needs to be able to perform an action that his younger self would perform while still being the changed Kratos. It's a fantasy game. It's awkward to be talking about he's murdered Heimdall.
I know. Yeah, it's
if he was the god killer, I think it's important that if he's faced a situation where it's, I would say, inevitable, I don't think he really had a choice.
Yeah, I think Heimdall was going to die for them to win.
Yeah,
in any outcome.
And particularly the way it happened, Kratos, he tried, and Heimdall refused the option he was given. So I don't think he had a choice but to kill Heimdall in the way that the events transpired. Is it important that he can be the god killer without being the ghost of Sparta? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know. I do get what you're saying.
Like,
it's tricky because for me, at the end of the day, he's just killed a god. Like,
he can make or perform an action that the old him would have also performed, but without becoming the old him.
Okay.
It doesn't set
It's a
him
good
back
argument.
into
Yeah,
his
it's a good
own-
point you're
his
making.
old ways.
Yeah.
I know you said, he just grabs the horn. Like, I think there's still maybe room for mental and social development in the way that he handles things. Maybe he could communicate that better. I think maybe it wasn't fair of Mimir's reaction either.
Really?
Might come from the violence and the...
I think it was
the
that.
word primal.
Because he said, this isn't you.
Yeah. But maybe it is him. And maybe
But that's not a good
bad
thing.
No, maybe it's not. His story
then where
in
does it-
Greece
like,
is
where does
part
it
of his
end,
story
though?
still. And...
Because why didn't he just kill Thor then? I guess he did give Thor a chance.
But he gave Thor a chance. And if Thor was then
Yeah.
threatening his child, what do you think he would do? Like...
Okay.
I think it's Heimdall was... Him and his personality was a very big part of the way that happened.
Yeah.
But I feel like Mimir's criticism was of maybe the way he approached the situation, which I think is fair, that it's not him to be taking the light from someone's eyes. But if he'd maybe used his axe or his spear in the way that it was designed, Mimir might not have reacted that way.
I think because it's a
not
very
the
like...
action, it was the method.
Yeah, I think it's a very intimate death, like choking with hands.
Yeah.
It's a very
Like, it wasn't...
human
I didn't
and
enjoy
primal.
watching /
Yeah.
playing it either. But...
Because most enemies you
Yeah.
see Kratos, he's like hacking an enemy and half of his axe, and you're like, this is
Yeah.
awesome. This is great. And this is I think he's the most disliked character. Like I think more than Odin, like Heimdall is the one, as an audience member, you hate him.
Odin, it feels like has redeeming features, even though it
Or
might
he's
be
just like,
manipulation.
you're like, oh, I can kind of get where you come from. It's like, this
Yeah.
guy just loves the game. He's just evil.
Yeah.
But it's even that, like, you're fighting Draugrs who are mindless, whatever, and you're cutting them in half, and you're like, this is awesome. But then Heimdall, I think it's that human just like choking with hands, and there's not music really playing. It's very silent, except for Mimir, and there's just blood, and you just see like light leaving his eyes. I think it just makes it's a very intimate death.
Yeah.
You're watching.
And that part is the confronting part. But I feel there might be a poetic nature to him acting in a way that the old Kratos would act, but as the new Kratos, and not falling into his old ways.
But then is that the new Kratos and he's doing what the old Kratos? Like then
with the
what?
situation.
Well, then what looks like the old Kratos then? Like
Well,
if killing a god that violently isn't the old Kratos, then what is?
From what I know of the old Kratos, as someone who hasn't played those games, his actions in Greece were a choice. This feels a lot less like a choice. So if he's almost forced into a situation that he would have chosen previously, how does he deal with that? And I feel like he's still a changed person afterwards. Like he might shut down a little bit when you said he grabs the horn and walks away, but as Ragnarok continues, he's clearly not the old Kratos, and having experienced what would be a traumatic event for him too, because he doesn't want to be the god killer anymore and he's been forced into that situation. I think overall the way he handles it proves that he's not the old him.
Okay.
Or something like
All
that.
right. Well, let us know in the comments what you think of that scene where Kratos kills Heimdall and how you view Kratos' change up until that point. So now that I think we've talked about all the characters we want to, we're talking about the main cast. We'll talk a little bit about Valhalla now, which for me is maybe the only example of a really good DLC. Firstly, it's free, so yeah, that's great. Yeah. But it's a DLC where it doesn't feel like they made 100% of the game, they cut out 20% and you buy it later. It feels like it is an add-on to the story, but it also feels, and this isn't a bad thing, that if you don't play Valhalla, you actually haven't experienced the entire story yet. It definitely feels like a really good epilogue. That's the first thing. But, and I'm not saying if you didn't play Valhalla, you never got the full experience of the story. But it's more, I'm shocked that, from what I can tell, they didn't plan on Valhalla as like something they would do when they first made the game. It was really something they made afterwards. But the amount of character growth, I guess it was more they were maybe directly labeling character growth. Like for Kratos, they're very much explicitly stating his growth. Yeah. And it starts off, he gets the invitation and maybe he's running away from Freya, which we learn she's invited him to be the new god of war.
Which he clearly doesn't want to accept.
Okay. But I think it's a good call for him not to be the god of war.
Yeah, particularly not just saying, yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure, I'll be the god of war. Let's just run it back.
Yeah.
And obviously the point of it, the Valhalla is he's running away from that responsibility, and Freya maybe to an extent, but it is all about confronting. Master thyself is the quote in front of the door before you go into Valhalla, which makes sense. Yeah. And obviously it's a bit of fun. You get to go into the Greek world and interact with a Cyclops and all those.
Helios.
Yeah, and Helios coming back is great. But that's another great example of this weird atonement that in Valhalla nothing's real apart from Kratos and Mimir. They're the only things that are real. But when he has Helios there, he apologizes to him. And this is, from what I can tell, it's a projection of Kratos' mind of what he thinks Helios is. So it's all built off Kratos' mind. It's not Valhalla's gone to the Greek world. It's important. It's based off his perception of it. And even that he feels bad about Magni and Modi. He talks, because he fight, I think, Magni as like a mini boss fight, and he feels bad for killing them because then he's realized where they've come from and the upbringing they must have had with Thor. But it was such a weird but powerful moment. He apologizes to Helios and Helios kind of goes, yeah, I bet you're just lying and making it up, which obviously that's Kratos' view of Helios coming through. So you don't know, is that
actually what
does Kratos maybe feel, even though he apologizes to people, it doesn't make up for it? But it is a weird moment where he's apologizing to this made up head on his belt to Helios. But I love we get some real tier representation. So in Ragnarok, after the story, you can go free tier from a prison. And the tier you meet, straight away he says, let's take the fight to Odin. Completely different tier to the Odin disguised tier. He is the god of war. But you say, sorry, Ragnarok's happened. And then
poor guy.
What happens if you go in the 9 realms, you'll see him at random spots and he'll kind of just tell you a bit about his backstory. But in this, you get Tyr as a character. And it feels weird. The real Tyr feels very different from the Tyr we've known in the main story. And he's really about pushing Kratos, but maybe even challenging me here, showing Kratos that maybe he wasn't always evil in the Greek games. He did do some horrible things in the Greek games. He killed like innocent civilian. Like there's a scene of him. He's on a ledge, and there's a civilian hanging onto the ledge. Kratos just throws him off the ledge. He doesn't have to. He can get around him. He just throws him off. Love of the game is killing people, but there are times when Kratos brings back the light to Greece when it kills him or he didn't have to. And there are moments that Tyr reveals of Kratos did some good things in Greece, and maybe that goodness was always there, and maybe it is a choice that we choose to follow. I love Tyr, how he's got weapons from each, like different realms or different worlds even. Like he's got some stuff from Egypt and Japan and who else knows where that could be in it. Could be setting up whatever. But then the really powerful, the last scene, which got spoiled on YouTube if you were anywhere near a thumbnail the day it came out, was Kratos confronting his younger self in the throne. And I know some people wish for a boss fight, but I kind of didn't mind it just being a scene of him talking to himself.
He didn't speak either. Sorry, I said I didn't mind.
Oh, you did like it?
I did like. I don't know if
I did. Yeah.
I did like.
Do you mind? Yeah.
I didn't mind that he didn't speak.
Yeah.
There we go.
Where it was just he was talking to this younger version of himself. Yeah, and it wasn't because that Kratos would have argued back at me like, "Oh, you're weak and foolish for being whatever you are now." But
that could have cheapened the scene.
It really could have if there was like a bickering.
Yeah.
Whereas Kratos, he goes on this Shakespearean monologue. He's like, "What am I, a god of fools?"
Because he is attacking him, but then he almost stops.
He stops and he looks at himself, and then he's going on this insane monologue where it's like, "Kratos, you never talk this much. Chill out a bit." No, it's nice because you really start getting moved, and he goes, he realizes by the end of it, he's the god of hope. But what I like is when he sees his younger self, he says, "You are cruel, arrogant, selfish, but you've always been more than that." And he's obviously talking to himself. His
present self.
His present self. Yeah. And it's this, once again, this masterfully written scene. And you don't know how the writers at Santa Monica Studios figure out to do this. And once again, to have the control to not have a boss fight where you've got the axe and he's got the blades and whatever.
Well, you can see his scars of
you can see the scar.
Chains.
Yeah. I'm glad they didn't really do that route. Actually, I think the only downside of not knowing the Greek games from what I can tell is when he gets the blades in the first game. Apparently, if you play this game, it's like a massive moment when he gets the blades and Athena maybe appears and says, "You'll always be a monster," and he says, "Not your monster anymore, no longer your monster." So maybe he knows he's a monster.
Well,
that's what I'm saying. But I love that last scene where he confronts himself and he speaks to himself about how he thinks he's misunderstood and how he's recognized he's changed, and maybe he should take a throne as a god. Maybe he has come far enough where he can do that and not revert to it. And that's something he says is, can he trust himself when the time comes to not become the ghost of Sparta again?
And that's what I mean with Heimdall. See?
But it took until Valhalla to figure that out. So it's not at that point of the story, it's not a thought, but I don't know what you mean. By the end of the story, I'd agree where he knows that he's capable of it. He just has to choose not to do that. And I think that's another thing of redemption is, I think redemption isn't you become good and then you forget all of your past. You just forget what it's like. You forget your impulses. You forget being evil. It's those tendencies will come up, and it's, do you choose to give into them, or do you choose to maybe use them as tools to build something new, which Kratos will probably do as the god of hope, which I find very interesting, and he accepts to be on Freya's council. And that's where the story ends for us right now. And obviously we can speculate in the future what we'll have. Look, honestly, part of me won't mind if we never get another God of War entry. I just think it's a really nicely, like, very tight story. It tells you a lot and you just leave it there. I know there's discussion about a Faye game or an Atreus game, and I think they would, for me, to thematically have to justify why are we following this character? Like, what are we going... Because for me now...
Telling a story for a reason.
Exactly. Not just to sell copies of a game. Yeah. I think for me, God of War has become a series where it is teaching you something and something very profound. And I think they can't cheapen that with just here's Atreus in Egypt for 5 hours, have fun killing, Ra, the sun god. It would be great. And I think it wouldn't make sense for Kratos to go to a new god pantheon and rehash the story, because he's done, like, it would, for me, to undo the character arc if he goes to Egypt and he's killing all the Egyptian gods. They're like, the best excuse I could think of is Egypt invades Norse, the Norse mythology, and Kratos has to defend it. But that feels like we're maybe rehashing old territory of, I had to kill them, or it was necessary. I don't feel like there's much more to do with Kratos. I feel like he's a fully developed character.
I was going to say, I think Kratos' story might be done, but I'd be interested to see 20-plus-year-old Atreus. What's he
Yeah,
getting up to?
because he's hunting for the other giants now, and he doesn't know what he's going to find on his path. And where are the giants? What are they doing? Why haven't they been helping out? So I think that's a very interesting story they could maybe tell with Atreus. I think Faye's story, I would be interested in seeing that in like a book or a comic or the show, or when they do the show. I don't think a game would interest me. I want to know, because now I know the entire story. I want her story. I don't want to know her story before the God of War. Yeah, like if it was my first time playing, I kind of don't want to know the Faye lore before you play the 2 God of War games. So I think her story is very interesting. Like, she fought Thor. She created that icicle lightning bolt in the sky. That's a very, there's definitely a story there. We only got a bit of it in the game. So I think Faye has a lot to tell us. And why is Faye so kind in this really harsh world? And then how does she meet Kratos?
Or is she?
From what I can tell... Well, I think Atreus is a product of Faye.
Maybe she is now, but was she when she was fighting Thor? I don't know.
True. Well, he was killing giants, so we don't know whether she was doing it out of defense or aggression. And I think from what I can remember, when Kratos and Faye first met, they fought. So like that would be a cool part of the game to play through. So that would be interesting. So is there anything else you want to talk about, like the deep dive analysis of characters or themes?
I feel like we've hit all the main points.
Okay. Maybe we'll now go a bit more broader at like the future of the franchise. So we've got a TV show coming out. The first image of the show did come out. Yeah, we don't want to judge it based off a first look. I think they have a bit of a way to go. I'm interested to see how they can cram both games into 2 seasons. I think the first game you could do 1 season. I think the second game needs a lot more breathing room to tell a complete story. I just think...
we could just go back to 20 episode, 45-minute seasons. We could just do that.
We could do that rather than 8 episodes at like 20 minutes. Because, for example, like a minor character we didn't talk about, but still has some nice moments, is Freyr. So Freya's brother. Freyr. My worry is someone like him, he would get severely cut out of the show. Like he would appear, but he has this great backstory of he united in Elfheim the Dark Elves and the Light Elves, and since he disappeared, they've been at war. And as soon as he comes back, they're all chill. So you want to see that story maybe unfold a bit, and a show should further develop side plots. I haven't seen The Last of Us, but I've heard what the show does well is it takes a moment from the game and it expands that a lot into something you never saw in the game.
Yeah.
And that's like God of War is a world where there is so many stories to tell that we have no idea what they look like or what happened. And I love another thing I loved in the games was you hear these major stories and these epic stories, and then you meet the people and you're like, oh, you're some weird quirky person. You're not like this incredible, impressive God.
Like celebrities in this life.
It is like us meeting a celebrity. You have this massive image of who they must be, then you meet them. The reality is very different. Yeah. It's not, I won't say disappointing, but they are a person at the end of it. Yeah. I think Freyr's a good example. Like you hear about him in the first game, I think, and definitely the second game about him uniting, and he's a very inspirational, peaceful figure. And then you meet him, he's just like this kind of like bumbling idiot. Like he's just like the inferior younger brother of Freya. And that's, I think, something interesting. And that's why I'm just worried the show, if you're trying to cram Ragnarok, even another, like Ragnarok himself and Surtur.
Yeah.
He's just so, like you get half an hour of Surtur and you only get a few lines, but you learn so much about him. And that's what I love with the richness of the game is when you meet Surtur, he says, oh, I have her heart. She has my heart. And the Tracer's like, why have you done that? And he's like, because I'm in love. And then you realize, okay, there's an entire backstory to Surtur we're never going to know. And I love that. Because sometimes I love in a world the fact we're never going to know the entire story. And we feel like the characters, we only interact with Surtur in his capacity as being Ragnarok. We don't
pre-Ragnarok. Yeah.
But he becomes Ragnarok.
But like we know him as Surtur before he's Ragnarok, and then.
But we don't know the Surtur who fell in love with the ice version of Surtur, and who they switched their hearts around, and he doesn't want to kill her. Like when I think of like, for example, Thor from the MCU, that version of Surtur is much different to this one. Like that Surtur's just like a big brute, and they could have done that in this game, where it's just this massive boss that you have to direct him towards, Asgard. But I love how they made him a very human character. Yeah, he's just a guy in love. He doesn't want to kill his lover, but now he realizes he might have to. And we don't know what that backstory is. And I kind of hope we will never find out, and we'll have to speculate and think, oh, there are stories in this world that happened before we were here and the stories that are going to happen after we're here. Because those are the worlds I love when you don't have it. Like, I love Star Wars, but I feel like you can turn too many rocks in Star Wars and learn too much. Whereas God of War, it feels like I'm never going to know this and I love it, that I'm just going to be in the world. Stuff like Jormungandr, how Jormungandr, you meet him in the first game, he knows Kratos and Atreus, because Jormungandr in Ragnarok goes back in time. So he fights Thor.
Make him.
And you make him, like Atreus puts a giant soul into a snake and that becomes Jormungandr.
Or
and
you're led to believe
I think you're led to believe that. I think they wouldn't put that in there if it wasn't meant to be. But Kratos, there's like prophesized at Ragnarok, Thor and Jormungandr will fight and it'll send Jormungandr to the beginning of time. So then you realize, the Jormungandr we meet
has already experienced.
He's met Atreus and Kratos, and that's why he helps us out throughout the story, because he knows we're the good guys. So I think that's an interesting story. So I'm just worried. Yeah, little Jormungandr there, and he's got the Leviathan axe inside of his. It's like a Velcro piece. You can take it out. So my only concern with the story, the show, is they're just going to truncate Ragnarok too much, because Ragnarok is too dense and rich of a story. I just feel like we're going to miss out, because I think what it benefits from the game, like the music gets to develop, you get like such nuances in characters and in their performances, and I just feel like that might be lost a little bit in a show that's trying to cram in 8 hours.
I hope it's not 8 hours. Probably will be.
I think it might be like 8 episodes, 1 hour each, or less than an hour.
You could pull
each.
that off for the first game, I think.
I think the first game could fit in 8 hours if you cut out a bit of the fat of the story. But Ragnarok, I think there's too many avenues to go down. And, you won't get the side missions, obviously. That's the first thing they'd cut out. But I think it'd honestly just be like 1 episode is each realm in season 1. And so every realm gets the same amount of time despite how long it takes. And then once you're like Muspelheim, like the volcano realm, you don't see that much in the story. It mainly appears in side content. So it's like, do we not see that realm that often now in the game, in this show, sorry?
That's true.
So I'm excited for the show.
Oh yeah, definitely.
As soon as they announced it, I was like, cannot wait. They're going to do this story. We're going to see it, for real. But always the concern is when they've told a good story like this, and I don't think I would change much about the plot or the characters in the game. It's a tall order to fill, because I just think even if they get one thing slightly wrong, it could just undermine. Like if they get like Tyr's deception wrong, or they get Freya a little bit off, or they get Brock a little bit off, it'll just like chip away at it. And it'll still be a great story, but I just think it really needs that strong.
It won't like
landing.
Preserve the integrity of the original game.
Yeah.
I think my biggest concern, not as like a super fan, just as someone who's gone through them recently, I said earlier that I feel like Atreus is meant to be somewhere between 7 to 10.
Yeah.
And then in Ragnarok,
he's aged up a bit. Yeah.
14, 15, kind of thereabouts. I'd always viewed it that Atreus is like 10 in the first one and then like 14 in the other one.
Yeah, okay.
He looks very young to me
does.
In the second one. Like, I think you'd kind of maybe corrected me that he is supposed to be closer to 7 in the first one, but playing him, like to me, he was like 10. Like I'm thinking he's like a year 5 in primary school or something. He's not like a year 1 or 2. And I do think that's
it is a big difference.
Age difference in terms of the maturity that Atreus seems to have, because he's definitely still like an immature child. Yeah, he becomes very arrogant when he's told he's a god. But I don't think he's like truly a little kid. Like he's a tween, could you say?
Yeah,
I've always
maybe,
viewed him as a tween, not
That's
a
fair.
kid. And I think he's being portrayed as a kid.
Yeah. Well, we haven't seen anything yet, so we don't know. But
I'll be interested to see how they approach that.
Yeah.
And then, because again, I kind of thought the 10 to 14 years, are we supposed to believe that Freya's been hunting us the entire time?
Yes.
So I think
So I think the 2 games, they take place 3 years apart.
Okay.
And Freya's been hunting them the whole time.
But then he's not 10 in Ragnarok. So then...
I know. Yeah.
I mean, it's God timeline.
It's God age.
So
just let it
I'll
be.
leave
Yeah.
it to them.
They wanted like a child, and then they wanted a teen in the second game.
Yeah,
And
but
I think
then
they just kind of
if we've been on the run from Freya the entire time...
Yeah.
I'd believe it for 3 years, but do I believe it for like 6 or 7? Less so, but...
Maybe. Yeah. That's a fair point. Yeah.
So, we'll see.
Yeah. I think one other thing I want to mention quickly, I really like how Kratos and Mimir's relationship develops. Like at first he's a pretty annoying
Kind of
head.
annoyed.
Yeah. Then after all, he becomes like the trusted advisor, and that's Mimi's role.
His role.
Yeah, his role. And I really like that trust that Kratos, he calls him brother at the end, which is always a nice little tidbit. And I really like in Valhalla seeing the real Tyr. Who's I know I kind of touched on this earlier, but he's like this really wise character. And you're thinking, well, you could have used him in Ragnarok.
Where were you when we needed you?
Yeah. So I think is that mainly our big discussion?
I think so.
All right, there's one more thing I want to get out. So when they had the 20th anniversary release of merch, they had this was released, and I bought it. I remember opening it quickly, and I saw something else, and I thought that might be a bit of a spoiler for you. I can't remember what it was, but I remember seeing it thinking, you're in the middle of the first game or towards the end of the first game, and I thought, so we'll open it now, actually see what's in the box. So it says, this is a story of a bear and a wolf. I always found that analogy interesting. Yeah. What do you think?
I feel like they could both be both.
That's what I'm thinking.
I'm struggling.
Well, I think Atreus is meant to be the wolf because he's like the young,
but then
scrappy.
he clearly is the bear, at least in Ragnarok.
Well, he becomes a bear and a wolf.
Yeah.
In that game, he transforms into both.
Yeah, true.
So you can see there's some like Norse runes on the bottom of it. I'll bring it up a bit closer.
I could vaguely see them.
Oh, there's an official seal in it. Let's see what's in the seal. Oh, yeah, there's an art print. Ooh. Kratos and boy spreading phase ashes. Damn. Glad I didn't rip that open. So it looks like it comes with a God of War stamp on it and 2 God of War pencils. And they've got a stamp outline for Atreus and Kratos there. Only issues I have to now use the notebook. I don't know what for. It's going to be the type of notebook I don't want to use it now because it's so nice.
Too special.
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
Wow.
So silver.
That's Faye's handprint that she puts on all the trees at the beginning of the first game, which is very nice. Wow. Yeah, I'm definitely not going to be using this. This can live in a cupboard forever and never see the light of day. Ooh. That's very nice. That's another nice little notebook they have there. Wow. Ooh, they've got some nice art on the inside of it. This is never getting used, I can tell you. It's too nice to use. It's too nice to use. Wow, that actually is quite nice. Yeah, maybe I have to start journaling, podcasting. As well. That is pretty much it for today's episode. I think that's our first Jump to Hyperspace episode. This is a franchise means a lot to me. Even though it's only 2 games, it's such like a short franchise. And I know they're doing the God of War remake for the original games soon. So who knows if that's like they're going to keep the original style of the games or they're going to redo the games a bit. So, yeah, it's taught me... I want to hear what your perspective is, because I know for me it's meant a lot in terms of self-growth, redemption, atonement, personal discovery, learning things from other people. You know, like, you know, Kratos, you can probably draw some parallels in everyone's life. You feel like your way has worked. For a while, it's worked.
So it's right.
But then you meet other people and they teach you a different view on life, and that you can, you know, take bits and pieces of it. Like, what do you feel like this story is meant to you? It doesn't have to be as profound as what I'm saying, but like, has it had this impact on you, which made you think about some of these things a bit more? Or has this discussion made you think a bit more? Or is it still just like, it's a game I played, it was a bit of fun?
I think I've definitely picked up on extra analytical points through this conversation, like everything with Heimdall and Kratos. I feel like that wasn't at the forefront of my mind before being here. It's taught me a lot about games, I think, generally. Like, maybe it's put a very high bar on how I'm going to view games, but... Well,
another interesting thing was with game design, because I'm a gamer. For me, everything was so logical in how you explore the world. Like, I knew if there was a ledge with white markings on it, that's where you go. Whereas you had no idea where to go. And I thought that the little things, like, it was almost like a second language I'd picked up over time. Anyway, sorry, I cut you off there, but yeah.
No, but that's kind of what I was getting at. Like, I mean, it's taught me maybe a bit of learning to get to know your psyche as someone who has grown up with games, whereas I'm like, what is a camera? Like,
the camera's tricky. It's tricky.
No, it is what it is. And yeah, thematically, there's a lot of morals to the story that you can take away. I think maybe the longer I sit with it, the more it might resonate in time to come. Like, you've had, was it 2022?
I think I played it. Yeah, I played the first one just before Ragnarok came out. Yeah.
So I haven't had years
to
have it
marinate
bubble
on the
away.
story. Yeah.
Marinate.
And I think from what I can tell, it's one of those games, once you become a parent, you'd
imagine
learn
that.
a lot of different themes.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's the kind of game, it feels, I know people call it a glorified movie at times.
Well, I liked that.
I didn't mind that, because the cutscenes were great. But I think for me, it's the kind of game I would play every 4 years, 4 or 5 years. And then you'd just pick up something new each time and you'd be reminded of the story. I think it's the type of game you can replay purely for the story aspect.
I was going to say, if I did replay it, maybe this is a bit lazy, but I'd probably play it on easy mode.
Yeah.
I wasn't allowed to play it on easy
No,
mode.
you were allowed, but it just
No.
pushed you. You learned.
I'm glad we didn't.
Yeah.
But I think if I was playing it again, it would be for the story. It wouldn't be to beat Thor or whatever.
Yeah, like the challenge of the combat. Yeah, that's
like
fair.
I'm glad that I challenged myself and that you challenged me to learn that skill, but it's maybe not one that I feel I need to continue either developing to a higher skill level or where I'm currently at. Like, it's something that if there's a game worth playing and worth challenging myself for.
That's great, yeah.
Well,
if it's worth playing.
Is it the Star Wars series?
Yeah, I'll get to that. So
No
the next series Amelia will play is the Jedi series. So Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor. And I feel like these games have prepped you well to really get into a combat system.
So if I'm going to be expected to maintain my level of proficiency, then
as long as the Jedi games don't have a chest we have to ring 3 bells within a 5-second window.
We're not doing that again.
That was one of those puzzles. I remember there was the one in the first game. It wasn't working. And then I think I told you you're not allowed to leave this area until you knew where the bells were.
I was like, I don't care about
you can't
chest.
leave until you get the bells because it's about what it represents. And it's about learning and driving, and you did it.
And I remember there was one session where we sat down for the game.
Oh,
yeah. It was like one of the black thing where you reach in.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't get it. And we ended up spending over an hour. That was all we did. It was,
and it was
not
the same
related
with one of
to
the
main story. It was almost a side practice.
It was in Ragnarok. It was like one of the
quest.
Green Knights.
Yeah, but it was a practice. It was meant to be for training, I remember. So I didn't advance the story at all.
Yeah, we spent an hour and a half.
And we spent an hour and a half
just
trying on this same boss.
I know, but you learnt a lot. And
I did.
And then it meant you got, when you were fighting the end game bosses, you did some of them first try.
I did.
Right? Without the training, you wouldn't have been able to do that.
That's true. But if I was playing it, it would be for the story, so maybe I wouldn't do that again. I could do more of the side quests, I think, because I did skip quite a lot of those. We did the important ones.
I wanted to keep you engaged with the main story.
And I wanted to as well. I was like, no, I want to see what happens next.
Yeah.
But I think now that I know what happens next,
you can maybe breathe a bit.
Extract the value out of the rest of the world that they've gone and built. But yeah, I think I don't really have much to add in terms of themes. Like, you've said everything important there. So, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for watching Cast the Wheels or listening, and our very first episode of Jump to Hyperspace.
Yeah.
So I would obviously love to continue this series in the future, but this is more of a series where I really want it to be a purposeful discussion. I just want to sit down and be like, hey, I love God of War. Let's just talk about how much we love it, which we did. But I really want it to be a real thorough analysis of the IP we're talking about, and then in future do episodes where the episode's all about redemption. I talk about redemption in Star Wars, in God of War, in Marvel, in books I've read, in Breaking Bad, in Indiana Jones, in Better Call Saul.
I don't know if it's even in that, but
yeah, but in all these series, collating all of our experiences of a theme and then talking about one theme. But that's for future episodes. So thank you for sticking with us in this episode. And I feel like we had a really good...
short one.
nice short one, just a little bite-sized episode. So, thank you for watching Jump to Hyperspace. You can find Cast of the Wheels on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, and TikTok. And if you follow us on any of those platforms, you officially become a Guardians of the Wheels. Till next time, may the podcast be with you. Bye.
Bye.